Wow. So the first one, how long have you been selling? It's a pretty, just starting. It's just pulling into the lead with 33%, more than 2 years, 19%. Oh, cool. 1 to 2 years, 21%. And those numbers are still changing because people are still voting. We're going to cut off voting here in about another 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Get your vote in. Click, click. All right. End the poll. Let's, all right. So I don't know if you guys can see, share results. There we go. So as you can see, how long have you been selling on Amazon? 104%. That makes no sense at all. These numbers, the percentages are really wonky. Oh, maybe people were clicking more than one. I don't know. That's weird. Because how can 104% of the people be just starting? So weird. So kind of some more beginner-ish, and then people who've been doing it longer, and not so many people in the 6 to 12 month range. And then a lot of people coming from retail arbitrage. And by the way, I've got some really good success stories of people transitioning from retail arbitrage to wholesale, then private label, and then online arbitrage. All right. So that's the poll. Gives me a little bit of an idea of who's here. So housekeeping questions. Please use the Q&A button to ask your questions, because if you put them in chat, because there are right now 340 people here, and I'll show you how many people registered in a minute. So I guess a lot of people are going to be watching the replay. If you put it all in chat, there's just so much chat going on. It just goes off the top of the screen, and the questions get lost. Whereas if you put them in the question box, it's kind of like a checklist for me. So, and if it's not a question and you're not expecting a response, then feel free to use chat, and maybe I'll be able to get to it. And again, for people who are just logging on, for some really weird reason, there are literally 100 or more people who are logged in as me, as my name. I have no idea how that happened. So when you're raising your hands, many of you, I won't know who you are because it says you're me, which is weird. So I don't know what to do about that. So let me keep going with the show. So anyway, questions and Q&A, not in chat. So the official title, here we go. Product sourcing made easier. Notice it doesn't say easy, because product sourcing is not easy. Nothing in business is easy, because if it was, everyone would do it. But I'm hoping by the end of the next roughly hour, and maybe we'll be a little bit less than that on content and more than that on Q&A, but by the time we get through this sucker, you guys are going to see that product sourcing can be made easier. So we have a packed house. As I mentioned, we have 358 people here, but you can see on the screen, we had 1,699 people register. It's pretty typical for about a quarter to a third of the people who register for a webinar to show up live, because some people are working or they're picking up their kids or whatever, and then a whole bunch of people watch the replay. So we've got that recording, and that'll be published tomorrow. All right, agenda. Details of my product sourcing system, step by step. That's the bulk of what we're going to talk about, and we're going to get way down in the weeds. So you may want to watch the recording over and over, or you might take notes, or whatever it is that pleases you. We're going to talk about the top 5 reasons why people fail. And unfortunately, no matter what the business, when people are getting into a new business of some kind or trying to, lots of them fail. And we're going to talk about why, because I really want to obviously help you guys to avoid that. And then we're going to do Q&A, lots of Q&A. All right. So I love this. I heard this expression years ago. Entrepreneurs are like surfers, and to be a really great surfer, you need a really big wave. So as an example of that, my very first business was an IT consulting company. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but my door's open a crack, so trucks driving by. And that was not a great wave. That business was really hard to grow. And after 8 years, I was only doing $1.8 million. In this business, which is a great wave because it's e-commerce on Amazon, I did 1.1 million in my very first year. So did I get, 8 times smarter? No, hell no. I got a little bit smarter because I'm older and more experienced and all that. But you just want to be on the right wave. And let me tell you, Amazon is the wave to be on. You need to figure out whether you're going to do private label or you're going to do wholesale, or you're going to manage accounts for brands. You need to be on this wave because it's incredible. So keys to success once picking the right wave. Rule number one, expect it to be harder than you think, especially when you first start out and don't really know what you're doing. So think back to like if you learned how to drive a stick shift, really easy now, right? Or riding a bike, really easy now. You didn't even think about it. But when you were first learning, you had to think about everything. Well, where am I going to put my hand? And when does the clutch go in? And what did the gear shift do? And starting in this business, in wholesale in particular, that will be this. It will be hard in the beginning, and you have to persevere. Rule number two kind of piggybacks on rule number one. You have to be 100% committed so you don't give up if results take longer than you expect. Here's the wrong mindset. I'm going to give it a try and see how it works. You know, I hope to get some results. We'll give it a shot. I'm not sure if this is like a legit thing or not. Hogwash. If you're going to be successful, like when I started in this business, I interviewed Dan Meadors on the podcast. I hung up the phone. I said to my wife, we're going to do this starting now. And 5 months later, we were doing over $100,000 a month. Why? Because I was all in from day one. I thought, well, Dan can do it. I can do it. I had proof. I had all the proof I need that it worked. And so I didn't have to have that. And I don't have that attitude anyway, because I've been an entrepreneur for long enough now that my brain's wired properly, or wired differently than when it was when I was an employee. But anyway, you guys need to be in 100%. Rule number three, find a mentor so you can follow a proven formula. So in the beginning, I had Dan, and I reached out to him with questions periodically, not very often because I'm pretty good at figuring stuff out, but find a mentor. If you don't have a mentor, let me say it again, find a mentor. Maybe it's me, maybe it's Dan, maybe it's somebody else. You're in a mastermind group, or you could get in a mastermind group, and we have one. And there are people there who you can team up with and buddy up with, but don't be like the solo. Don't go rogue and just try and blaze trail all on your own and reinvent the wheel, because that's just dumb. It's frustrating and it takes longer than it should. One of my personal favorites, rule number 4, develop systems to allow you to outsource the grunt work. And let me just tell you, in wholesale, as you're going to see as I go further through this, there's going to be a lot of grunt work. By the way, there are questions coming in. There's 11 of them now so far. I'm going to answer them all, as many as I can, at the end, and as many as my voice and my time will allow, because I do have a bit of a hard stop at about an hour and a half or so, because my wife and kiddo, we're doing the like corn maze thing, and it would be, my daughter would be pretty bummed out if I didn't show up. All right, and rule number 5. Let me go back to rule number 4, because it's so important. Develop systems to allow you to outsource the grunt work. The reason that I was so successful in the first 5 months in this business and ever since is I sat down and I documented everything on what needed to be done. And then I hired virtual assistants to do it. If I hadn't have done that, if I had to like try to do everything myself because maybe my mindset wasn't right, or I was being cheap or whatever, no chance. There is zero chance I would have succeeded, as you'll see, because it's a lot of work. And rule number 5 is hire people to follow your systems and do the grunt work. So that kind of piggybacks on what I just said. You got to hire virtual assistants. You cannot succeed in this business without hiring a couple of virtual assistants. Rule number 6, you need to send at least 100 targeted emails a week so you have more leads than you need. And the more targeted your emails are, the fewer of them that you need to send. So by targeted, I mean you had a virtual assistant go on to LinkedIn, as we'll cover here a little later, find the right person, find their email address, as opposed to just sending it to sales at or info at or whatever when you're trying to reach out to a brand. Rule number 7, look, act, and talk like a professional, because first impressions are everything. That means you need to have an epically good website, not an amateur hour website. The theme that I use is Enfold by, I'll just search WordPress Enfold theme if you've never built sites on WordPress, but you got to get a good looking site. And in the beginning, all I did was I went and looked at eTails and NetRush, 2 big third-party sellers doing north of 100 million a piece. And I was inspired. I did not copy. I was inspired by the content that was on their site. And it kind of gave me an idea how to fill all the white space when I didn't know what to put in all the white space. Subsequently, my site looks nothing like either of theirs because over time I got figured out what to do, which you will too. But in the beginning, you need to have your A game. All right, so you're here, 410 of you now, and I don't know how well you all know me or don't know me, but you might be thinking, well, why the hell am I listening to this guy? Why am I on this webinar? So here's a little, I guess, proof in the pudding. I started as a side project in April of 2016 while we still ran a successful digital marketing agency. I started in private label. I didn't do very well. I mean, I got sales up to 20 or 30,000 a month, but I wasn't making any money because I was spending it all on pay-per-click. And I switched to wholesale on September 1st. And then we increased our monthly revenue to over 100 grand a month within 5 short months. And because I was on a big wave, not a little ripple, I accomplished in 1 year what it took me 8 years to achieve with my first company. And I was doing it, I was only working 25 to 30 hours a week. And eventually I wasn't working in the business at all. Within the first 12 months, I had delegated myself completely out of day-to-day operations because I have other businesses, as you may or may not know. And so I devoted my time to trying to make those businesses grow. And the key to that, of course, is having systems. All right, so product sourcing to be successful requires scale. It's kind of like a production line. If you're not sending a minimum of, I wrote here 200, but if you're starting off, call it 100. And if you're making sure they're all really, really targeted, that should be enough. But you need to do it every week, week after week after week after week. And if you're not doing that, and if you've heard me speak at the TWF conference, you've heard this before, you're unlikely to achieve success before frustration kicks in and causes you to give up. And that would be a horrible shame. So how do you send north of 100 emails per week? Say the smart students at the front of the class. So here is an overview of the sourcing process. In the TWF course, they teach you this thing called leaf sourcing. That's a kind of an optional step of essentially you just need to find sellers. Find sellers that meet your criteria. You then use PC2 or more. There's another piece of software that I've learned about recently, and we're also testing now called Tactical Arbitrage, which you can extract their storefront, aka all their products, into a spreadsheet, which we then import into HubSpot Sales, which is our CRM software, and then we email them and we call them, and if we get the price list and so forth, that goes into another spreadsheet, and we do the margin calculations. And 1 or 2 times out of 100 attempts, we get a product. Let that one sink in for a minute. 1 or 2 times out of 100 attempts, we get a product. That's why there's a lot of grunt work. It's like trying to sell. While you're not trying to get a brand to give you money, you're trying to get them to give you permission. You're trying to find good enough pricing, and you will fail. And we do fail most of the time, which is why you need to have great systems. If you were selling whatever you're selling, insurance, or my first career was I was a stocks and bonds and mutual funds and all that stuff. Most of the calls I made to prospective customers went nowhere. I failed most of the time, but I kept going because I had perseverance and I had a really strong why. And that's what you need to be successful in this business as well. So targeting sellers is really easy. You literally pick any product and look at all the sellers, and you'll find a whole bunch of them. And over time, you'll get to know names like River Colony Trading and Big Fly. These are really large shops. Maybe you're not going to go after the products they have. Maybe they are, because of their size, they're doing something that you can't do. So you want to find similarly sized sellers. And that's pretty easy to do because when you look at a seller profile, you can see kind of how many reviews they have, how many seller reviews, not product reviews, seller reviews they've accumulated over the last 30 days, 90 days, 12 months, lifetime. And we assume, rule of thumb, and this can be wildly inaccurate, but you got to have a rule of thumb, that if they're getting a review 3% of the time, in other words, for every 100 orders, somebody bothers to leave them a seller review 3 times, well, then you can just divide their 509 reviews and you can figure out, well, they're doing 17,000 orders a month. So you want to find somebody who's close-ish to your size, because if they were able to source a given product, guess what? you can probably source that same product. So as you get bigger, this number is going to get bigger. But in the beginning, don't go trying to source products that the elephants have sourced when you're only a mouse, because it's going to be the criteria of what they look for is going to be different than the criteria of what you should look for. And this is covered in the TWF training. So I guess I'm probably beating a dead horse. You guys probably already know this. So we extract with Price Checker 2. As I mentioned, we are also testing another piece of software called Tactical Arbitrage. We are always testing new stuff. I'm just going to take a quick second and close my door so we don't have this noise. Here we go. See, that was fast. We are always testing new software, new tools, new things to incorporate, to see if we can be more efficient or have fewer errors or lower our expenses or what have you. But up to this point, as of this webinar, this has been a great tool for us, and we continue to use it. And then what that tool or Tactical Arbitrage will do is it'll suck all those products out into a big spreadsheet like this. And what I did in this spreadsheet is, let me go through my bullets to make sure I don't forget anything. So once we have the spreadsheet, the Google Sheet, I have built-in formulas in here and sorting colors to help narrow down the products further. What I'm trying to figure out is, of all of these products that this other seller carried, how many of them, given their sales volume, how many units a month, given their price, so gross, those two together are gross sales, and how many other sellers are on the listing and in contention for the buy box. If I was one additional seller and I was in contention for the buy box, meaning I was at the same price as the other FBA sellers, could I get enough share of the overall pie to make it worthwhile? It's really simple math. It's, if there are 4 sellers, let's say the product does 100 units a month, which just simple number for math. And there were 3 sellers currently, and I would be the 4th. Well, I would get roughly 25 units a month. If 25 units a month times the price of the product and the profit margin that I assume, which in my case is 20%, is enough for me, and it turns this column here to the gross profit potential that meets my personal criteria, and your numbers could be different than mine because there's no right, there's no wrong, then I would go after the product. I would throw it out to you and say that less than about $200 a month, not really worth it unless you can get 3 or 4 products from that same brand and they're each making 200. Well, at 4 products times 200 is 800. Now you got an $800 account. That's much more worth it. All right, so that is that slide. Search for promising brands. So here's another awesome tool. So this has nothing to do with Price Checker or any of that other stuff. This is a tool from Viral Launch. I love this tool because of this red box. Before this was made, I used to think to myself, man, I wish somebody would make me a search engine that I could just find brands that met certain criteria. They're in this category and their revenue per month across all of their products is between this or between this or whatever. You can see all the search criteria here on the screen. Love this tool because whenever I find a product, I can very quickly take their name from the Amazon store as exactly what it is and paste it right in here under brand name, hit this little orange button, and boom, I immediately am shown Viral Launch's best guess, and it's not 100% accurate, but what is, of how much that brand is doing per month across all of their products on Amazon. That's a good number to know, because if you find a product and it's a brand that, say, is doing $20,000 a month across all of their products, well, if you're just starting out and you're relatively small and you don't have that much working capital, that would be a really great brand to go after. Now, in my case, I wouldn't go after that brand. I like to see brands that are doing $500,000 a month because I've been doing it longer. I've got more capital. I've got more experience. I got more credibility. You need to swim in the swimming pool that fits you for where you are in your business experience, amount of working capital, credibility, because all of these things, if you try to catch fish that are too big, you're not going to catch any. So catch little ones until you get really good at that, then catch bigger ones, and then focus on bigger ones. And then later on, start pulling out your elephant gun and going after the elephants, which is what we're doing at this point in time. So, love that tool. Absolutely, highly recommend it. Other attributes we consider when we're looking at a brand, and you should make this decision for like when you're sending out all these emails, which we still do. Sometimes, a lot of time, you're going to get, it might bounce or you'll get a no. You'll get a no a lot of times. We don't want any more Amazon sellers. Well, are you just going to take a no and just give up? I don't. One of our biggest account to this day said no at the beginning of the call. 18 minutes later, after I finished saying all my magic words, he said, "You're approved." And we've made a lot of money on that account since then. Now, does it normally happen on the first call when you turn a no into a yes? No, it does not. It takes a sustained effort. You need to be in touch on an ongoing basis, providing value on an ongoing basis. So that's a whole lot of work. But you need to make sure that you're only doing that for brands that are worth it. So again, I'm going back, I'm going, well, what's this brand worth? Is it a fit for me where I'm at in my business? And also, what else, where are they located? I like to go after brands that are a direct plane ride away from me, because eventually I'm going to want to go see them. I don't want to take connecting flights. Connections always get delayed. I hate that. I'm going to look them up on LinkedIn. How many employees do they have? 33,000. No, not going after that one. Like, how the hell are you ever going to find out the name of the person among 33,000 people that you should be talking to? Impossible. Or they have 2 employees. Well, guess what? That's not like a really legit company. That's probably somebody's little private label affair. And I'm not interested in that one either. So I learn a lot from LinkedIn. And then, of course, this screenshot here, which is kind of the Jungle Scout view of all of their products, you can kind of get that same data. Actually, I don't even do this Jungle Scout thing anymore. I just use this because then I don't have to add it up myself. It just shows me and it's done. So it's really easy. All right. So now you think, great, I want to go, and all your VAs should be doing all of this, by the way. You're not doing any of this. Then you got to get the contact data, because I said you got to send targeted emails. You can't just send them to sales at or info at. I mean, if you can't find any email address, which would be odd, I guess you would use that. And it's better than nothing, but it's not great. So you're going to be using tools like LinkedIn to look up. You're looking, who's the VP of sales, who's the director of e-commerce, who's the chief marketing officer. You want to go after those types of people because they have the power to say yes or say no. That phone call where I turned a no into a yes in 18 minutes, it's because I was talking to the right guy, the guy that had the authority to approve me, not some person in customer service who's basically sending out account applications and screening calls. They don't have the power to do anything. So trying to persuade them is not really a good use of your time. And then we use things like Snovio. You can use hunter.io. There's all sorts of tools out there to try and guess the email address, because it's important that you try and get it right, obviously, because otherwise it doesn't go to the right place. And if all else fails, this is what I do. I pick up the phone and I say, "Hello, I was just trying to send an email to John Smith, and I think I wrote it down wrong. I sent it to john.smith@google.com and it bounced back. What's the right email address?" And they give it to me every time. Notice I did not say that I spoke to John, that he gave me his email address. I just said I wrote it down wrong. It's a little bit of a fib, but it's not an outright lie, because I did write it down at some point in time and I wrote it down wrong because I didn't know what the hell it was. But by saying it that way, what the person on the other end of the phone hears is that you've probably been in contact with this person, even though you didn't say you did. And they'll give you the email address. I've literally, I think once last week was the first time, it was this really weird company who was like, I think they were the SWAT team or something. They didn't want to give me any information about anything. So LinkedIn, that's where you're going to get the contact information. So what do you expect when you call a brand? The more popular the brand, the more this happens. So again, if you're new, don't go after, and when you're new, the most important thing is to get wins, to get products, to make sales because you need it up here. You need it in here. And so in the beginning, when you're going after the smaller brands, there's not as much competition. They're not as getting as many emails. And so they're more likely to say yes. And then you get to have that victory. And more importantly, you get to gain experience because you need experience at all of this stuff, filling out account applications, placing a purchase order and shipping and receiving and shipping it into Amazon and listing optimizations and running pay-per-click campaigns. Because no big brand in the world is going to ever say yes to you until you can show them that you've done this stuff a whole bunch of times before. So start with the smaller brands. Swim in the pool that's appropriate for you. Now, when you're on the phone, and I can feel it. People are like, I got to be on the phone. Yeah, you do. You'll get some by email. And in the beginning, 2 years ago, we got lots without ever picking up the phone, but the landscape continues to change. The marketplace becomes more competitive. So you're going to need to talk to these people because there's a lot of people who are too chicken to pick up the phone. Well, guess what? You have a huge advantage over them. And this is like not the most complicated thing in the world. You just need to understand how to ask questions, and you need to understand what your value propositions are. And by the way, this is something that we cover almost every week in our paid mastermind group, the e-commerce fast track, brightideas.co/EFT. We role play, and all the people who aren't super comfortable with this, that's one of the major things that we can do in that group is role play these calls and get you more practiced. So know your value propositions. Brand tells you they don't want any more Amazon sellers because the ones they already have suck. Your number one job is to explain to them that you're different and that you can solve their problems and you can not suck. By the way, I see a bunch of people who are raising hands, and there's so many of you here and so many of you that are logged in as me. The whole raising hand thing, I'm not sure why you're doing it. But there's not much I can do because, again, so many of you just show up as my name. It's really, really bizarre. So I'm just going to lower them all. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. All right. So you need to explain to these people that you are not the riffraff, that you're not like everyone else that's getting in touch with them. And there's all sorts of ways that you can do that. And, this isn't, we don't have time to go into all of them, but you could focus on a niche. You can have a particular specialty. You can be knowledgeable about their product and their top two competitors when you pick up the phone, just by putting 5 minutes worth of effort into some research, some pre-call research before you pick up the phone. You've already differentiated yourself, because most people, too lazy, they just wing it. And what kind of results do you think they get? Not much, because they're winging it. All right. So value propositions are there to address top problems. The two go hand in hand. So what are the top problems on Amazon? Number one, by a mile, is brands will have unknown and unauthorized sellers listed on the seller's page, all racing to the bottom on price, trying to get a bigger share of the buy box, which is a total loser's game, because as soon as my repricer puts my price down, your repricer puts your price down, and my repricer puts my price down, and this guy's repricer puts his price. You can see where I'm going. Like, it is pardon for expression, a shit show of Loserville. Nothing good ever comes of that except map violations, and brands hate map violations. Why do they hate map violations? Very simple. Let's say that I sell widgets, jars of almonds, and I sell them online and off. And 40% of my sales go to Walmart, and they sell them in their stores at $19.99 a jar. And then they show up on Amazon at $18.50. Do you think Walmart is very happy about that? No. As the brand owner, do you think I'm concerned that Walmart would stop buying from me and I'd lose 40% of my company's revenue? Damn straight I'm concerned about that. And that is why brand owners are freaking out over map violations. So the one thing you need to get really good at is figuring out how to help them solve that problem. Negative product reviews that go unaddressed. That's bad. Because if someone who's never bought their product yet finds them due to an Amazon ad or an organic search result or whatever, some people just read the positive reviews, but also some people's read the negative reviews. And if you're reading the negative reviews and there's no response to any of them, that's bad. What does that say to the consumer? Well, this brand doesn't care. So when you're on the phone with a brand, one of the things you can say is, hey, before I called you, I looked at your Amazon product listing for your top 3 products, and I looked at all the 1-star reviews, and none of your current sellers have bothered to reply to any of those reviews. Aren't you concerned about that? And then you just shut up. And it's their turn to talk. And most likely, they're going to go, wow, I didn't know that. And yes, I'm very concerned about that. And then you say, well, you know what? If you authorize me to become your preferred or one of your sellers, or kick everybody else off and authorize me, that's ultimately where you want to get to. I'll make sure that never happens again. And if you're dealing with a smaller brand, maybe even a bigger brand, but a smaller brand, smaller company, constrained resources, and they're like, oh my gosh, you're going to help me with this thing and I don't have to hire anybody. Oh, this is awesome. You're approved. It can literally be that simple. But if you have not done your homework, you didn't say that. You weren't ready for that. So you didn't get to have that win. Lack of content control. Amazon is essentially just one big wiki. The more sellers now with brand registry, and Amazon definitely put some tools in place to help control this, but not every brand out there, especially the smaller ones, are brand registered. So their product listings can change all the time, and pictures go out of date, and the titles can change. And if they have FDA compliance issues to deal with on the way words are used to describe their product, and that stuff changes, and then that produces a compliance violation, that can be a huge deal for them. Again, most of these brands by now will probably have this locked down with brand registry, but it demonstrates your knowledge when you ask the question. Their problem is they don't have an understanding of the Amazon platform, because in the case of the manufacturer that sells these things, maybe Amazon's only like 10% of their sales. So 90% is all their brick and mortar retail partners. Amazon's 10%. But so they don't really know the platform very well. Maybe you can do a better job than them. So once you've gained some experience, you can definitely do a better job than them. Too many 3P sellers, third-party sellers, that means no control. That means prices all over the place. That means everything's out of control. So having fewer is better for the brand. And being able to explain why is what you need to understand how to do. I have a blog post that does it. That way, my words can travel throughout that organization and still be accurate, meaning whoever I talk to can forward my article to whoever else, and they're getting it from the horse's mouth, as opposed to, when you were a kid, you play that game where you sit in a circle and you tell a story and it goes around the circle, and by the end, it doesn't resemble anything at the beginning. If you don't have content to support your talking points, it's like playing story at the executive level, and your message will go nowhere, because of the simple fact that the next person that tells your story will be worse than you. Who they tell will be worse than them. Who they tell will be worse than them, and so on. And then, of course, getting beat by the competition. Brands hate getting beat by the competition. They want to win. So how do you communicate your value propositions? Have a killer website. Talked about that. Publish relevant content. I just talked about that. How do you know what to write about? People say, I don't know what to write about. You're going to know really quickly. The more you talk on the phone to prospective brands, you're going to identify a pattern of questions they keep asking. That's where you want the blog articles, because those are the answers that you're going to use over and over and over and over again. And while you might not know how to write that content today, you will learn, because there was a time when I didn't know what any of it was. You'll learn real quick. The more phone calls you have, the more conversations you have, and even in an email exchange, but to a lesser extent, you'll get it figured out what you need to write about. So now it's time to make contact. Let me just say this. There is no one right email template. Some of you may be screenshotting my screen right now. We don't use this one anymore. Screenshot your daylights out. Doesn't matter. We split test our emails every single week, because things change all the time. What worked last week, there's no guarantees it's going to work 2 weeks from now or a month from now. You have to constantly be testing. Now, there are a couple of best practices. We have tried short emails and long emails. We've had success with both. In the long emails, we go into a lot of detail. In the short emails, we try and keep it really short. To begin with, I would suggest to you that the number one goal is to try and start a conversation. So you do that with questions. Instead of writing them and saying, hey, we're awesome, you might say something along the lines of, I'm reaching out because I've become aware of your products and I've taken a look and I think you have absolutely fantastic products. But I don't yet know anything about your company, how your products are sold, where they're distributed, your pricing policies, etc. And I would like to learn more about that. Can we schedule a time to talk? What's wrong with that? As a matter of fact, some version of very close to that, we're going to be split testing in our send, I believe, tomorrow. So there is no perfect email template. Don't ask anyone for a template. Don't use somebody else's template. Write your own emails and track the results. Because if you're not tracking the results, how are you going to know if you're getting better or getting worse? You're not. This is a numbers business. You need to track your numbers. And then call them. So in the beginning, in the first 5 months, I tracked the gross profit per email sent, $11, and gross profit per phone call, $33. I suspect that data is not 100% accurate, but it's better than 50% accurate. So it's reasonably accurate. And picking up the phone made me 3 times as much money. And just think about it. Somebody gets a gazillion emails every single day. How are you going to stand out if you're just an email? It's going to be really, really hard to do. But if you get them on the phone and you connect with them and you ask intelligent questions and you've prepared yourself by doing some research for that call, you can absolutely make an impression on those people that other people won't make, and you'll connect. And that's why the phone is so incredibly valuable. All right, so staying organized and keeping track of key metrics. So HubSpot is actually really great for this because you can connect it to your Gmail account. It'll track all your sends and replies. You can make all your phone calls out of HubSpot. It'll track all of those. You can keep all notes of your conversations and create follow-up tasks and track your deals in a pipeline, etc. And we do all of that stuff, and we use HubSpot and we love it. Then if you're using the deal forecast, and so what's a deal? A deal is when I have an opportunity. They've given me a price list, or I've had a great discovery call, or something to make me believe that I have a legit opportunity as the way I've defined an opportunity. Then I can track the aggregate value of all the opportunities in my pipeline at any one point in time. You want that number to be big, because the bigger the forecast is, the bigger the reality will be. So if you're starting to build a team like I am, and then you have people working for you like I do, and you look at this as the manager and the number ain't big enough, you know you have a problem. You know that they're not prospecting enough, or they're not sending enough emails, or they're not putting enough deals into the pipeline. Or if it's just you, you're not putting enough deals into the pipeline. Okay, pre-call prep. Prior to making your call, you need to already know the answers to the following questions. Are there listings, the top 2 or 3, well optimized relative to the competitors? Title, images, bullets, enhanced brand content, um, reviews being answered, negative reviews being responded to. What's been the trend in their sales over the last year and the last quarter? Viral Launch will give you that. What's been the trend in the price as of late? Viral Launch will give you that. Are any of the current sellers running ad campaigns? Super easy. Just type in the primary keywords for whatever those products are. Do any ads show up or not? If no ads show up, none of their sellers are running ad campaigns. If ads show up, some of the sellers are running ad campaigns. Is anybody responding to negative reviews? And what's their share of the market listings that show up on page 1? Viral Launch or Jungle Scout will tell you that. Obviously, if the first, so for dog leash, if the first page of results shows up and let's say there's 10, and it adds up to 250,000 a month in sales, and their product is getting 220,000 of that 250, not a lot of room for getting more market share. But if their product is getting 8,000 of 250, there's a lot more room for improvement. That's the kind of thing that you need to know before you're picking up the phone. All scripts, again, just like an email script, there's no perfect script, but to avoid being nervous, and it's okay, you'll be nervous in the beginning, get over it. You should know what you're going to say, at least to begin the call. Hey, my name's Trent. I'm the buyer for such and such company. We're a professional online retailer and brand solutions partner located in, and I'd like to place a large order for several of your products, blah, blah. I don't even know if we haven't used that particular script. And the reason I've got a really outdated script here is, again, I don't want people screenshotting and saying, oh my gosh, that's the script Trent said, that's the one, I got to use that one. It doesn't work like that. You need to use the one that you wrote, that you're comfortable with. The importance of this slide is this: when you're new and nervous, the way to get your nerves to go down is to know what you're going to say before you say it for the beginning of the call. Once you get into a conversation, it's piece of cake. You're just two people talking back and forth. You ask questions, they ask questions. Easy. You don't need to script any of that stuff. But you should have a clear idea of what you're going to say when they say hello. So you're not going like, oh. All right, number one objection: we don't want any more Amazon sellers. The very first thing you should do is agree with them. Amateur sellers try to make this BS case. No, you need more sellers because it'll drive up sales. No, more sellers just drives down the retail price. That's it. More sellers does not drive up sales. Never has, never will. So you're going to agree with them. You're going to say, you're right. I agree with you. You do not need any more Amazon sellers. But based upon my research, because I did some research before I called you, I don't think you have the right sellers. And here's why I think that. I noticed that relative to your competition, your images aren't as good. I noticed that relative to your competition, your market share has a lot of room for improvement. I noticed that relative to your competition, your bullet points aren't very good. I noticed that your competitors are running pay-per-click campaigns and you're not. Like, you just go through all these deficiencies to support the argument that you're making that no, they don't need more sellers. They need a better seller. And guess what? You're the guy. You're the better seller. And when you ask the right questions and you support your statements with evidence, not just puffery, you'll make a positive impression on people. And the reason for my call is that I noticed all these issues and I couldn't help but wonder why your current sellers aren't looking after these issues for you. And then you could literally just be silent and just wait to see what they say. Never, when you ask a closing question like that, you never talk. You wait to see what they say, because you've just now planted their bum cheeks firmly on the hot seat, and they're going to sit there and sizzle until they start speaking. And then now you're into a conversation. Never give up. Email, phone, snail mail. How bad do you want the brand? I've just designed, I mentioned to you at the beginning of this webinar that we're starting to go after much larger brands, like $500,000 a month and up. You guys should not be going after those until you've been doing this for a while and you have access to the amount of capital that we do. And I've designed a 13-week long pursuit where we go after 3 different executives in the company, and each week my system says exactly what we're going to do. And it's not all going to be email, and it's not all going to be, hey, is my money ready yet? It's highly personalized. Every step is adding value. If you want a brand bad enough, never give up. All right. So remember, it's a numbers game. The more emails you send and the more calls you make, the more success you will have. Plain and simple. My first serious career, I was a stockbroker, or a financial advisor, as I was called. And I was the youngest guy the company had ever hired. And no one thought I would succeed because I was 23 years old at the time. And I kicked everybody's ass. And you know why? Because, and James Clear wrote an article about me. It was called, if you search for the paperclip theory or the paperclip something, you'll find it. Because every day I would start with 2 paperclip jars, or two baby food jars on my desk. And one of them had 100 paper clips in it and the other one was empty. And every single day before reading the newspaper or checking, there was no email back then, all I would do was every time I dialed the phone, I would move a paper clip from one jar to the other. And that was my discipline. That was my system to ensure that I did the same thing every single day. And my numbers, I knew my numbers. I knew that out of 100 dials, voicemail didn't exist back then either. Out of 100 dials, I would get through to about 30 people, the people I wanted to talk to. Out of those 30, I knew that 10 would agree to receive my offer in the mail. I was off, hey, this is Trent. I'm calling to see if you're interested in receiving a booklet called 10 Ways to Save Tax Through Your Investments. I want to see if you might find any value in receiving a copy. Like, I literally still know the script. And 10 of those 30 would say, yeah, I'll send me that. 3 of the 10 would take a meeting. 1 of the 10 would become a client. Know your numbers. You have to know your numbers, because when you're not achieving success, it gets frustrating. But if you know that every email is worth $11 and every phone call is worth $33, I'm going to keep making phone calls, man, because I'm just one step closer to my yes. Because yeses are inevitable unless you give up. Then you don't get them. And that's the difference. That's the difference between people in any business, not just this one, who succeed and fail, is their ability to withstand pain, emotional pain along the way, until they get the outcome that they want to have. Know your numbers. All right. What do we got now? So now we're going to shift gears. So now you understand the product sourcing system. There's obviously a lot of detail to it, but you can rewatch this webinar. I've literally explained exactly how it works. You could completely rebuild it on your own if you were so inclined in the beginning. I built it from scratch. Top reasons why people fail. And by the way, for those of you who've heard of my webs thing, you'll learn more about it in the coming days. All these systems are already all built for you, for those of you who don't want to build it. So top reasons why people fail. By far, number 1 is mindset. So experienced entrepreneurs don't give up at the first sign of adversity. Instead, they simply understand that they haven't yet figured out the correct method to achieve the desired result. So they simply alter their approach and try again as many times as needed. That's me. That is what I do. Newbies, people, newbies, new entrepreneurs, wantrepreneurs, call them whatever you want, most often have the wrong mindset and are almost looking for proof that it isn't going to work anyway. And when it doesn't, they allow their attitude to sour and they either give up or go chasing after some other shiny object. What I should have made is, a poll. How many of you have bought more than 3 or 4 or 5 different training courses on how to be successful on the internet? Unfortunately, some folks out there will buy training courses forever and they'll never be successful. And that's because they lack the right mindset and resilience. So when I talk about swimming in the pool that you should be swimming in the beginning, make it easy to win. You might not make a lot of money in the beginning, but you need those psychological victories. You need to get, like, there's nothing like making your first dollar online. There's nothing like seeing your first sale. So no matter how ambitious you are, start with the low-hanging fruit. Because if you don't, it's going to be a lot more frustrating and a lot more difficult to get yourself in the game and be successful. Number 2, why people don't fail, why they fail, is they're not following a proven formula. So virtually everything that I've learned in my life as an entrepreneur, I just learned it from someone else. I don't think I've had an original thought in my entire life. Selling wholesale on Amazon, it's not rocket science. There are 2 million third-party sellers making money today, and they account for 50% of Amazon's 180 plus billion in sales. So unless you think that the trend in e-commerce is going to reverse itself and brick and mortar is going to come back to life, there's always more room. Because the existing third-party sellers, maybe they get sold. Maybe the new managers do a crappy job. Maybe they lose some accounts. Maybe somebody just retires. Like, there's always attrition. People write me sometimes, oh, is it full? Is there no more room? There's always more room. When I started, my very first company was an IT consulting company in Vancouver, British Columbia. There were hundreds of IT consulting companies. The market did not need another IT consulting company. But yet I was successful, and my company was twice ranked as a Profit 100 fastest growing company in Canada. Why? Because I had a really great website and I made a lot of calls. And by then email was around, I sent a lot of emails. I simply out hustled and out-marketed my competition, and I took market share from them. If you are going to be successful in this or in any business, that is what it takes. The tactician. Oh, the tactician. I am not the tactician. Tacticians, another reason why people fail. They try to do everything themselves, especially if they lack funds. Newsflash for you, you need money or you need access to money, credit, to succeed in a physical products business, and wholesale is a physical products business because you have to buy inventory. Now, there is one exception that I catch myself as I say this. If you don't have money, offer to manage manufacturer's own Seller Central account for a percentage of the gross revenue. You don't need any money for that. And then you're not, because you don't want to do hourly rates. Never do hourly. Never. You want a percentage of the performance. No risk to them, no risk to you. That aside, if you're going to buy products and be a third-party seller, like a true third-party seller, you got to have cash. How are you going to buy the inventory if you don't have any money? So if you have money, why are you not hiring virtual assistants who will happily work for $2 to $3 an hour? Why would you do that work? You're valuing your time at $3 an hour. You kidding me? $3 an hour? If you do that, you're nuts. You're absolutely nuts. And the reality is this business cannot be done on your own. If you don't hire people to help, you will not have enough hours in the day to get all the work done, to generate enough leads to give you, because remember, we only win 1 to 2 times out of 100. So if you don't have enough leads, how the hell are you going to be successful? You're not. And if you don't have a system for generating those leads, how the hell are you going to generate enough of them? You're not. It just can't be done. So product sourcing requires a great deal of really, really boring grunt work that can be easily outsourced to a virtual assistant for $2 to $3 an hour. You have to do that. Reason number, whatever number this is, lack of a sustained effort. It is unusual to expect significant results right out of the gate, even if you're following a proven system, because that part will take time to develop your personal skill set. I was an experienced entrepreneur who had done hundreds, if not thousands of sales calls prior to getting into this business. And there I used that experience to build these powerful systems that allow me to out-hustle and outmaneuver my competitors. And send more emails than everybody. That's why I was successful. And then when I got on the phone, I outsold other people because I was better at it. You have to sustain your effort long enough to get good. You're not just going to be good from the beginning. Swim in the pool that you should swim in. Practice on brands that if you lose them, it's no big deal. You don't want to put all this time and effort into pursuing a $50,000, $100,000 brand if you don't know what you're doing. Because if you do get on the phone with them, you're going to totally blow it. You don't want to do that. So thanks to my systems and willingness to hire VAs, we went from 0 to 100 grand a month in 5 months. But then we plateaued for several months after that. And I was really frustrated. And we're on a plateau like that right now. And I'm really frustrated because I don't want the small brands anymore. I want the big brands. So I'm in this transitional period. When I get a new account, I want to see my monthly revenue go up by 200 grand, not 10 grand or 20 grand. So despite my frustration back then, we didn't give up. And after 6 to 8 months of plateaued, now we were still making money, but we were plateaued. We found a way to massively accelerate our growth again. That's normal. That's just a normal part of business. Another reason people fail, and this is the last one that I could think of, there's probably more, lack of key skills. The landing key accounts most often requires that you have a high level of communication skills, both written and verbal. If you're not good at that, you need to practice. Best way to practice is to do it. So unless you have extensive background in sales, like I did, you will not likely have these skills right out of the gate, but you can develop them. By sending 100 to 300 emails per week, you're going to be giving yourself plenty of opportunity to practice and improve your skills. That is the reality of it. In the beginning, just expect to suck. Don't attach your emotions to the outcome. Simply attach your mindset to I'm in school. I got to pay my dues. my first month? Probably no one's going to say yes because I'm going to suck. But I guarantee you, if you record your phone calls and you listen to your 20th phone call versus your first phone call, you're going to go, whoa, who's that guy or gal? Because the difference in your communication, especially if you've got a mentor and you're being coached along the way to kind of give you feedback on whether you're doing the right thing or not, is going to be huge. Oh my gosh, we have 52 questions. How am I ever going to get through them all? Okay, so get practice, acquire skills. Q&A, here we go. Thank you everyone for staying this long. We're still north of 400 people here. So by that, I assume I am not boring you. All right, so I'm just going to work through all these. All right, so and this comes from Trent Dysmird, or someone logged in as Trent Dysmird. How is wholesaling different from OA, RA, and PL? Online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, and private label. It's actually very, very different. And that's a fantastic question. I'm glad you answered it or asked it. So in private label, that's a lot of risk because you are creating product listings from scratch. You have to order product that you don't know if it'll sell. It's very possible to make a bad decision about your product and everything just goes downhill from there. And you just eat it. You don't get your money back. Not good. Not a good place to start. And it takes forever. It takes months to bring a product to market. Wholesale, you're only buying products that already have a proven track record. They already have been proven to sell. So the chances of you buying a product that doesn't sell, really, really low because you've got data, which is great. You don't have to create a listing. You don't have to get reviews. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You just have to get authorization from the manufacturer to be able to buy at wholesale at a price good enough and then resell it on Amazon. And again, to be a broken record, you should expect to get that 1 to 2 times in 100. Now, online arbitrage and retail arbitrage, as the name suggests, retail, you're going into a store, you're like buying stuff on a discount, and then you're taking it and you're selling it on Amazon. Great way to make cash, but Amazon doesn't like it. And it's very transactional. It's like a job. You got to keep shopping. If you don't keep shopping, you run out of products and the money stops. With wholesale, once you have an account, all you can do is a reorder. That's ridiculously easy. Yeah, send me some more. Cool, thanks. I didn't go to the store. I didn't walk around scanning stuff, etc. And I never did retail arbitrage, but I know people that do. Some of them are probably on this webinar. And then online arbitrage, you use software like tactical arbitrage, which I've never done because I didn't want to do this either, to find differences in prices enough that you could buy the product from this website, have it shipped to your house, package it up, ship it to Amazon, and resell it there. The only difference between OA and RA is OA, you don't leave the house, you use software. RA, you're going around to stores and you're buying stuff. All right, so that one was answered live. And oh my goodness, there's questions keep popping in, and every time I try and click on the thing that moves because there's another question coming in. We're up to 60 now. It is unlikely that I will be able to answer all of the questions, so please bear with me. Mendel is asking, I want to get your tools, but they're not available. How can I get them? They will be available next month, starting next Monday and through until the following Friday. So from October 22 to October 26, Webs, which is the name of my tools, all these standard operating procedures that I developed, they will be available. If you have attended this webinar, you will get the emails to move you through that the marketing funnel and give you the opportunity to buy them. So Mendel, stay tuned. You will be able to get them. William, am I doing private label? Nope, absolutely none. I don't like private label at all. Dismiss. Now, I want to define one thing. There's a big difference between having your own brand and private label, because I am setting out to build my own brand. Private label is I'm going to go onto Alibaba. I'm going to buy some widget that anybody else can buy, and I'm going to get them to slap my sticker on it and put it on Amazon. And there's really no difference between the widget with my sticker on it versus somebody else, the same widget with somebody else's sticker on it. You could call it China arbitrage. I've heard that as a nickname. That sucks. Don't do that. What is totally worth doing, but not depending on how much money and experience and confidence you have, you might want to do this in the beginning or you might want to wait a little while. Me, I chose to wait, is you're building your own brand where you're literally designing your own products. Now, you might take something that exists, but then you say to the manufacturer, well, I want you to change this and do this and do this. And you got to stitch my brand name into it. And you come up with your own packaging. Like you're a legit brand. Is that worth doing? Oh yeah, absolutely it is. But maybe a little harder or a lot harder to do and more risk and takes longer. So, is that the best thing to do in the beginning? I didn't do it in the beginning. I love wholesale. I think wholesale is a great way to start. Oh my gosh, 70 questions. How am I going to ever be able to do this? Okay, how do you give your VA access to a company email account to contact brands? I just create one for them. Go on Gmail and I get a Google Apps account and I create an account for the VA. Okay. Smith. Is the purpose of this webinar educational? Or are you going to be selling training at the end? No, I'm not selling any training. It was purely educational. That question came in obviously pretty early. How do you get a brand to schedule a phone call with you? I think we probably covered that already in the content of the webinar. Tyler from Sacramento, my question, if you're just starting out, how do you overcome the inevitable objection from what other products are you selling on Amazon? So Tyler, that's a totally legit question, which is why in the beginning you want to focus on getting products that are going to give you experience maybe more than they're going to give you profit dollars. You might have to do some break even stuff or some minimal profit stuff because you got to get the experience. So that's what I would do. I have a concern about how big of a business you can grow using wholesale. For my research, there are about 65,000 brands, considering most of these brands are not good due to match metrics, considering 2% of our contacts brands would result in a wholesale account. Considering all this, is there a way to break $1 million per month in revenue? Oh, hell yeah, there is. There's a company in Utah called iServe. They're probably the most successful third-party seller. They've been around for 5 years and they're already doing over $100 million and they got 48 different brands. So yeah, there's always a way to be successful. They're just kicking everyone's ass. All right. Another question submitted with a user with my name. Sorry. Do you think someone would have an advantage with a small brick and mortar store for those accounts that require brick and mortar? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we just bought an 18,000 square foot building thanks to wholesale. And one of the tenants in that building is on the street corner. It's not an ideal retail location, but it's got a door and it's on the street and it's got windows. And I have thought repeatedly about kicking that tenant out and turning that into a bit of a brick and mortar store. And we may still do that. So if you can get that, yes, absolutely. How do you compare Amazon versus drop shipping? I've never done drop shipping, so unfortunately I don't, there's no meaningful comparison I can give you. Sorry about that. Okay. What are the roles of the virtual assistants other than the ones doing scouting? So we don't actually do any scouting. We just find, I mean, I guess we scout for sellers, but that's pretty easy to do. And that is done by a VA. Then the extraction is done by a VA. Then putting it into a spreadsheet is done by a VA. Then going on to LinkedIn is done by a VA. Entering that information, importing it into HubSpot is done by a VA. Like everything's done by a VA. When I was sourcing in the beginning, the only thing that I did was reply to the replies from our send. Everything else was handled by VAs. I hired VAs. Michael is asking, when did I hire VAs? Day one. And you have to. I want to say that again. If you're not willing to hire 2 VAs, 1 to 2 VAs right today, pack your bags, do something else because you're not going to be successful. In one of your whiteboard videos, you referenced a sales manager from a prospective account who claimed he learned more about Amazon from the meeting he'd just taken with you than he'd ever known prior. Can you relay what info? That was so many videos ago, I don't remember exactly who that was. So unfortunately, I cannot get into specifics. My apologies. Will you be able to access the slides? They'll be in the recording, so you could, watch the recording and, frame by frame screenshot, whatever. That's the only way I make it available. Also, so in one of my whiteboard videos, okay, so guys who are submitting questions, there are now 77 open questions in the queue. There is no way I'm going to be able to get through 77 questions before I got to get out of here. So there's no point in putting more questions in because I simply won't. There's 80 now. I won't be able to get to them. There's 400 people here, so I just can't do it all. I'm sorry. But we're going to keep going for a while yet, so just hang out. One of your whiteboard videos, I referred to Amazon as the new Google. All I meant by that was 50% of searches for consumer products now start on Amazon. They don't start in Google. So Amazon has become the de facto search engine for consumer products. What margins am I looking for? We look for a gross margin of 20% when you're starting off. And we'll go lower if the unit volume is high enough. It all comes down to the estimated gross profit per product per month. Now, where do you need higher margin? Margin accounts for risk. If you're one of numerous sellers and you think there could be a race to the bottom because you don't have co-exclusivity or exclusivity, you better have more margin, because the race to the bottom is going to happen and it's going to erode that margin. So try and get them as high as you can. I probably wouldn't go below 10. Does TA require you to enter the blah, blah, blah key, the AW? I have no idea, because somebody else on my team is handling that. Hello, I want to say you discovered my podcast a week ago and you're loving it. Thank you very much. Adil, can you please share the PowerPoint? No, I don't share the slides, but I just do share the recording. Viral launch estimates per ASIN is accurate as Jungle Scout. Who knows? We use both when we're going through the compliance phase. Like, let's say we get a yes, we get an account. We use both tools to do our sales estimates, because we want as many different data sources as we can. Do I have any advice on building capital? Yes, I do. Once you've been selling, so initially use your credit cards, ask for terms, ask to be able to pay. Like, if they'll give you 30-day terms and then you can pay it off with a credit card at the end, now you've given yourself 60-day terms. So you get as many credit cards as you can in the beginning. And then once you've been doing over 10,000 a month for over 12 consecutive months, Amazon Lending will send you an email saying, hey, we want to lend you some money. And I've covered this in my Daily Nugget YouTube videos, so you'll be able to find it. Amazon regularly offers us like $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 now, because we managed our loans very, very well. And I describe a specific strategy in the video on how to do that. So you basically you just never run out of capital. What if I hire a cold call to make the calls for you? Good luck with that. Probably is not going to work, because how are you going to afford to hire them? You'll never be able to find anyone who's any good, who's willing to just work strictly on commission, doing something that you have never done yourself. It's just not going to work. Matthew Paul, in order to get approved by more brand owners, did you eventually create a store that specializes in a specific niche? We did have some stores. They never had any transactions. They were there for window dressing only. I think that played a role for us a little bit in the beginning, but I don't think it matters now, to be honest with you. So I don't know how much energy I would put into that. Repeat the name link of my paid mastermind group. It's called the e-commerce fast track. Here, I'll put it in the chat. .eft. There, it's in the chat. Doug asks, do you ever ask them why they think the existing Amazon sellers suck? Oh yeah, all the time. Sometimes they have answers, sometimes they don't. Jennifer from Florida, do you only focus on products with a 20% margin? I kind of answered that one about 3 or 4 minutes ago. Are you less excited about products that may have a higher return rate? Yeah, definitely less excited. That's one of the reasons why there's certain types of products that we're just not into. Things that are too seasonal, don't really like, but some people do great with it. Things with a lot of different variations and sizes, I don't really like, but some people do great with it. So it all comes down to personal preference. So there's no right answer to that question. Electronics we don't do because of the return rate, and there's a lot of fraud in that too. But some people do great with it. Somebody said they missed the first 20 minutes. Yeah, the whole thing has been recorded. Okay, Trent, how do you respond to a brand owner who says, we don't sell to retailers, we only sell to wholesalers? Go talk to them about buying our products. So you can buy through distribution. There's a fellow I interviewed on my show called Josh Lucas. He actually built a $200,000 a month business entirely through distributors. So if you want to know how he did it, go to brightideas.co and type in Josh Lucas into the search box and listen to his interview. Okay. How do you respond to negative product reviews through your seller account? Yeah, Laura on our team handles it. I don't actually do it. So we do have a system in place in Webs that describes specifically how to do that. So there is a way to do it. I just don't know that off the top of my head because I've never done that and I didn't create that system. Can you explain why you want a co-exclusive over an exclusive on a product? So one's not necessarily better than the other, but an exclusive is a lot more work than a co-exclusive Because with a co-exclusive, you can get the other partner to do some of the work. Like, hey, we'll optimize these listings, you optimize those listings. There's a division of labor. It's also somewhat in the brand's best interest because with two sellers, there's not a single point of failure. That said, if someone tells me, hey, I want you to be my exclusive, I ain't going to say no. I'm going to say, here's the contract, sign there. Thank you very much. If you're asking for an exclusive also, it takes the sales cycle, makes it much longer. You're much easier to get someone to approve you as a second or a third seller than to put all their eggs, at least initially, in your basket. You might earn your way there over time. Make it easy. Don't make it hard for them to say yes. Make it easy for them to say yes. Hell, I'll even start with just one product. Maybe they have 20 products that I want, but I'll say, look, give me an opportunity. Let me buy this one product. Let me be on the product for 90 days. Let me show you what I can do for you. And there's a store, one of the members of our paid mastermind did that with a toy company, and it was massively successful for them. They took a product that nobody else wanted, easy way to get your foot in the door, and then they optimized the listing. They threw pay-per-click money at it, and sales went up, and the brand went, wow, you're awesome. Guess what? You're approved for all of our products now. Be creative. Okay. Why do you check to see if a 3P seller has responded to negative reviews if the response on the product listing? Yeah, it's you just look at 1-star reviews and you'll see whether there's responses there or not. Can wholesaling on Amazon e-commerce model be 100% automated through software and VAs? No, because you physically have to handle products. You physically have to talk to brands. There's no way you can automate it all. What is split testing for emails? Doug asks this. So when you send, if you're going to do 100 emails this week, 50 of them have this subject line and this body, and the other 50 have a totally different subject line and a totally different body, and you're seeing which one works better. Someone asks, and again, anytime I say someone, it's because they're logged in as my name, and again, I don't know how the hell that happened. What do you do when the customer has an issue you can't fix, like they didn't like the product, it was defective, et cetera? How do you address their complaints then? Well, that's about where the company's return policy comes into place, and that's the brand. That's a discussion you're going to have with each brand you deal with. What inventory management software do we use for restocking and managing inventory? So we use Seller Legend, and then my wife, who's a math whiz, built all of our systems using some spreadsheets and stuff. And again, that's all covered in our webs program. I've never done inventory management. I've never placed a reorder myself, so I can't get into any more detail than that. Terribly sorry for that. All right. How does multiple sellers doing PPC negatively affect a product? So if all of those, so one of the brands we have right now says to their third-party sellers, you cannot put our brand name in your PPC campaigns, because if you have multiple sellers competing for the brand name, they're just driving up the cost of the clicks. That doesn't do anybody any good. So that is the way that it can negatively affect a given product. Now, if multiple sellers are all running PPC campaigns and they're not competing for the brand keywords, well, then they're just randomly picking whatever keywords their software tools picked for them. And the likelihood that there's 100% overlap is slim. There's going to be some competition for keywords, no question. But that's just the nature of the beast. All right. Someone asked, at one point you said that the holy grail of an exclusivity isn't so great. Rather, co-exclusivity is preferred. So I already actually answered that one. So Ted writes, do you think it helps to order a product and let the brand owner know you have done it, and what you think about it based upon how the listing can be improved? Oh, hell yeah. Like if you want to get someone's attention, film an unboxing video, order their product, put it on your workbench or whatever, your kitchen table, and film yourself unboxing it while you're unboxing two of their competitors. Do you think that might get someone's attention more than just some random generic email? Yeah, I do. I'm going to actually write that down. I'm working on differentiators right now. Unboxing video versus competitors, because I'm going to put that in my 13-week long process that I described for the big accounts. Thanks, Ted. Will there be replay? Yes, there will. Another question about replay. Would you consider, you guys are still typing in questions. I'm not going to get to them. There's still 60 left, and there's no way I'll get to them all. So there's no point in putting more questions in. Would you consider Amazon the best business to be in? Any advice for running multiple businesses at the same time? So I'm in multiple businesses. And yes, the advice I would give you is don't be in more than one until you no longer have a day to day role in the first one. And that can only happen when you've documented and delegated your processes to other people on your team. Once you do that, yeah, you can have more than one, especially if they're kind of sort of related. What is your expectation of leads per virtual assistant? One of my sourcing staff would be able to give you an answer to that one, William. I don't know what the number is because I don't manage that directly. Do we only accept new accounts that have MAP? Yes. If they don't have MAP, we will not buy from them. Can't find the company on LinkedIn? Don't pursue them because they're not a legit company. It's probably somebody's little private label garage experiment. What is a small brand? Which revenue? Mark, that's up to you to decide. There is no right answer for that. It's whatever is a fit for you. Someone's asking, how much capital do you need to start? Again, what are your objectives? Is this a side hustle, a side gig? Are you looking to make an extra $500 a month? Or are you trying to make 50,000 a month? It all just depends on what your objectives are. How to get the decision. Mark is asking how to get making decision. That says a decision maker on the phone. Most of the time you get customer service. Yeah, that's true. So you know what? You need to have skills. You got to be good. You have to have a plan. You have to have a reason for that person to talk to, and you have to be persistent. Beyond that, there's no specific rocket science. There's no one trick. It's adding value, being prepared, and being persistent. I've never heard you talk about a warehouse. How do you handle that into the business? So we're in a warehouse. I'm in the warehouse right now. It's over there, and I have a prep team. But you don't have to have your own warehouse. You can outsource prep, and depending on what city, what geography you live in, and what your real estate and labor costs are, it may or might not make sense to outsource prep. Who's footing the bill to run PPC for the client? This guy, us. Rob Dotson, I think because I did not log into the Zoom app, it logged into the webinar. Oh, okay. What percentage? What? Hang on. What? Some people's English is not so good. I don't even know what that one means, so I can't answer it. So this is more about going direct to the brand, not via distributors. I currently follow the wholesale model, but sourcing products from the distributors, mainly only 2 brand owners. So there's not a question there for me to answer. Sorry. If you're totally brand new to this, just set up an LLC and just set up a storefront on Amazon. How much money does one need to get started? I answered that one already. I find many accounts are still set up from non-Amazon FBA because their cost structure doesn't work for FBA. How do you address that? I don't carry those products. Scott says, would it be a good idea to learn how product listings are created for private label brands to know how you can best optimize listing? Yes, that's how I learned it, but you don't have to go that route. There's tons of blog posts and videos about how to optimize a listing. In our web's product, we have systems for listing optimization from one end to the other. So that is covered. Trent, what percentage of suppliers are able to send you a spreadsheet of their products? What if suppliers do not have such a spreadsheet that you can use PC2 or some other tool? I have no idea what percentage of spreadsheets, but I think it's pretty high. Or what percentage of suppliers have their data in a spreadsheet.